of the season. Dallas, meantime, falling to 3-5-1. Questions now swirling around what to do on deadline day. Jacoby Brissett earning his first win as a starter in 6 tries. Back with the fellas to delve into what we saw here on Monday night. And again, we expected some of these inefficiencies from the Dallas defense, but this was not a Dallas offense that we have come to know over these last couple of weeks throughout the early portion of this season. What was the issue tonight? Protecting Dak, one thing, but finding offensive rhythm, another, Ryan.
Yeah, it's interesting. Imre, you and I were talking about this. The draft classes that they have had in Arizona the last few years, Monty Austin Ford and Jonathan Gannon, who's been under fire, those guys are starting to show up. We saw Walter Nolan, the first-round pick, play for the first time this season because of injury, the defensive lineman. He was balling out. Denzel Burke made a play on the ball, a PBU late in the game, and then he got the interception. We know what Will Johnson can do. And he has played big this season when he's been healthy. Cody Simon had a big play as well. So the list goes on, and not just first-round picks. Guys that you get on day 2, and sometimes more importantly, guys you get on day 3 that can help you fill out a roster. And those guys showed up big in an incredibly big moment for this Cardinals team, where they've actually surprisingly done pretty well in the Jerry Dome. But the Cowboys do too, and they just were able to make it happen.
Yeah, it was super frustrating to watch from a Dallas Cowboys perspective, where the one thing you thought they were going to be able to do was pass the football and run the ball. They ran the ball rather well tonight, but the passing game, surprisingly, couldn't hold up against this pass rush coming from the Arizona Cardinals. So they couldn't really protect Dak Prescott. And it wasn't necessarily one guy. We saw multiple guys up front had their issues with this pass rush from the Cardinals. So what usually was something we could count on, their offensive line failed them in this ball game, and we saw the Cardinals do a fantastic job at all 3 levels. To your point, all of those young guys that they drafted the last 2 drafts made plays consistently, and that right there is the mark of a team that drafts well, develops well, and get those guys out there to play. So Jonathan Gannon has done a fantastic job with coaching this football team.
Made it hard on Dak in that offense tonight. 24 of 39 for 250, a touchdown and a late interception for Dak, but numbers are just numbers. At no point did it feel like this offense was in rhythm. Run game, pass game, numbers are what they are. Dak in this group is going to want this one back. When you're win-lossing it at the end of the season, trying to look at that in the hunt graphic, this is going to be one that the Dallas offense specifically rues. Let's talk Dallas defense here as well. This was what we have come to know about this group, Emery. When you look at them, they're stressed by injury just like anybody else. The 2 deeps are not what they need to be right now.
They were also missing a lot of tackles. Mm-hmm. And up until midway to the 4th quarter is when they started to show some life in terms of getting after the quarterback. They turned it up in the midway part of the 4th quarter, getting after Jacoby Brissett, getting sacks, forcing him to get the ball out of his hands quickly where they were rallying up, making a tackle. But there was a lot of bust in the secondary as well. And so I think it all starts with them being a little bit more physical at the point of attack. But at this point of the season, that's not anything you can just turn on and say, hey, we're going to be physical versus the run. But we saw that creep up time and time again in this particular game, especially when the Cardinals decided to run the football to close out the ball game, to shrink some of this game and take some of the time off the clock. They really ran at will against this Cowboys front.
So we said before the game that this Cowboys defense has been allowing 68% completion percentage and 8.1 yards per attempt. Check's notes here, 67% for Jacoby Brissett, 8.4 yards per attempt. Matthew Stafford is who they faced. Matthew Stafford is what they got on average.
Matthew Stafford.
Right. So it's the avatar Matthew Stafford out there. That's who they see when they play. And look, we saw Jadeveon Clowney blast from the pass, get a sack. We saw Donovan Ezraku, the rookie second-round pick, get a sack. Dante Fowler, too. Dante Fowler got hurt, but he still got a sack before he had to go to the sidelines. But that is not nearly enough to make up for Micah Parsons. And then the secondary, we've talked about the 68% completion percentage week in and week out. It's not sustainable. We said before, and you talked to Pete Prisco about Marvin Harrison Jr. Tonight was his night, almost 100 receiving yards. So no answers for the run game, which we also thought was going to happen in the pregame.
It does look like a group that is more than just a Micah Parsons away from being an elite defensive unit. 5 of Dallas's 9 opponents this season have recorded season highs in points.
Not great.
It's not great. Let's give credit where credit's due. Marvin Harrison Jr. being one place, Jacoby Brissett being another. We didn't know what the quarterback situation was going to look like coming in, and now we move forward with an offense that does seem to be in rhythm when it's Brissett distributing the ball quickly into the flats, up the seams. We don't have to name a starting quarterback for next week, but what does Jacoby Brissett show you in this 60 minutes that does say, maybe he is the route forward for the short term.
The same thing he showed me the 2 previous games that they played, including the Packers game 2 weeks ago before their bye week, that he can run this offense like Drew Petzing wants it run, and it can be efficient. And so, I mean, you have to decide, do you want athleticism at the quarterback position, or do you want a quarterback who's going to play on time? He's not going to win a lot with his feet. He ran for a yard, I think, tonight. But if you want someone to get the ball out to where it's supposed to go, hit receivers coming out of the breaks, this makes more sense. Now, they lost 5 straight in a row by less than 1 score. They finally won this game by 10 points, which is interesting and fun and all that. The other thing I want to point out, DeMercado, after throwing the ball away at the end zone back in week 5, he went down at 4 minutes to keep the clock running. That's a situation where, and we all know about Jonathan Gannon getting fined for getting in DeMercado's face, a situation where a young man learned a lesson, he improved, got better, and he helps you win this football game, and I think that's something to point out as well.
When we talk about Jacoby Brissett, this is something he did in New England. This is something he did in Cleveland. This is something he's done in Indianapolis. And now he's doing it right now with the Arizona Cardinals. And what's cool about it is the fact that he's at the age or at the part of his career where he's like, all right, I'm just going to go out there and play. Because at the end of the day, I can't worry about whether or not I'm going to be a starter or whether or not I'm going to be here long term. I just need to go worry about the here and now. And the reason why I thought they closed out this game differently than they did previous ones was they were able to run the football when they wanted to. And the game script dictated them running the football at this particular time. Hey, we're going to close out this ball game. DeMercado, you're going to be the guy. They ran the ball, granted it's the Cowboys defense, but you still ran the ball to close out the ball game, even though he took a couple of sacks late in the fourth quarter. It didn't, deter the team. They stayed the course. And
that's the trade-off.
Exactly. So you're going to give that up a little bit with Kyler Murray, but at least the ball came out on time in the passing game, found different targets, and that's something that it starts to highlight the talent that they have on this roster at the receiver position, at tight end, and now in the backfield. So if they can continue to do this, granted, it's going to change when they face teams that can stop the run. It's a lot better for this Cardinal team moving forward.
Wins are hard to come by in the NFL. Road wins even harder to come by in the NFL as they go to Jerry's World and send a message to the Cowboys. A big win here for Arizona, who keeps some hope alive. And maybe it was just kicking the can down the road. If it's the last start of the season, or the last start for now, Kyler's keys to the car, the contract certainly says so, but the production might say something else.
Wilson and Emory Hunt is Howie Roseman, fellas. He is all in as the Eagles continue to fortify their defense ahead of Tuesday's trade deadline. 3 defensive players have been added by Philly over the last 2 weeks, with Jalen Phillips adding to Jair Alexander and Michael Carter as the latest. So, Ryan, with all these moves being made by the defending champs, how are you giving them a grade right now?
Oh, B+. And as B-Mac likes to say, Howie's in his bag. I love when these things happen, Kiana, and if you just go back in time 3 or 4 or 5 years and say, hey, we're going to live in a world where the world champion Eagles have first-round pick Jalen Phillips and first-round pick Jair Alexander. What has had to have happened for this to be a thing? And Jair Alexander struggled with injuries. Jalen Phillips has as well. They play for a team, Jalen does, in Miami that's a lost cause. Jair has struggled to get on the field, in part because of the injuries in Baltimore. But it feels like Emory, when whoever Howie ends up bringing in, finds their way to Philly, they look like they're best versions of themselves. And I fully expect to see that, especially Jalen Phillips off the edge, where they need more help at edge rush than they do in the secondary.
All right, you laid it out perfectly, because I gave him a C+. This is almost like you did well, but you have room for extra credit if you fill out the rest of the answers, right? I'm bringing back high school for me. Yeah. So that's what it was.
The Dallas Cowboys have officially reached their breaking point. After falling 27-17 to the Arizona Cardinals in Week 9, ESPN didn't just critique them, they buried them. And for once, it didn't feel like national media exaggeration. It felt like a cold, undeniable truth. Let's break down what was said, because every word from that ESPN broadcast was a mirror held up to this franchise. And what it revealed was painful. Right from the top, host Scott Van Pelt opened SportsCenter by calling this a week of surprising results. But he made it clear, Dallas wasn't supposed to be one of them. The Cowboys were small favorites, expected to dominate a struggling Arizona team. Instead, they trailed by 10 points in the second half and looked like the less prepared, less disciplined football team from start to finish. Then came the highlights. Arizona came out of halftime like a team with something to prove. A 50-yard strike from Jacoby Brissett to Michael Wilson set the tone, and Trey McBride, who's quickly becoming one of the toughest tight ends in football, put the game on ice with another red zone touchdown. And what about the Cowboys? Their offense was invisible. Their only early touchdown came from special teams, a blocked punt. The defense, once feared, couldn't get stops when it mattered. Even when Dak Prescott finally found the end zone late, the comeback was short-lived. Javonte Williams' fumble sealed the deal. That was it. A night where the Cardinals fought and Dallas folded. Then ESPN threw the hammer down. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, two of the most respected voices in the game, went live from the booth, and what they said echoed across Cowboys Nation. Buck started by giving credit where it was due, saying Arizona outplayed Dallas in every phase except special teams. He praised Jonathan Gannon for keeping his team focused after weeks of close losses, noting how veteran leaders like Calais Campbell and Jacoby Brissett refused to give in. Brissett in particular was described as poised and resilient, the kind of leader the Cowboys no longer seem to have. And then Troy Aikman stepped in. What he said next may go down as one of the harshest public evaluations of the Dallas Cowboys in recent memory, and it came from one of their own legends. When asked about where this loss leaves the Cowboys, Aikman said flatly, "It's not a good football team." He followed it with a quote from his old coach, Bill Parcells, "You are what your record says you are." And what does that record say right now? That the Dallas Cowboys are at best an average football team. That's not coming from a troll. That's coming from a three-time Super Bowl champion who's watched this franchise lose its way. Aikman called this loss a big blow to the franchise, saying the Cowboys truly believed they'd win this game at home, go into the bye week feeling confident, and climb back out of the hole they've dug for themselves. But instead, he said something that every fan knows deep down. This loss exposed that Dallas is much further away from contending than Jerry Jones wants to admit. And then he added one more line that silenced every optimistic fan clinging to trade deadline dreams. He said it's hard to imagine that whoever it might be, that trade Jerry's talking about, is going to make a difference for this team. That's the dagger, because that's Aikman saying exactly what no one inside the Star wants to hear, that Dallas's problems go much deeper than personnel. No one player, not Trey Hendrickson, not Max Crosby, not anyone, can fix this. The issues are structural, mental, foundational. Brian Schottenheimer was even mentioned by name. Aikman reminded viewers that even Schottenheimer himself admitted earlier in the week, "We're an average football team until we prove otherwise." Well, they didn't prove otherwise. They proved him right. The ESPN panel later circled back to the Cowboys, comparing them to teams with heart, teams with identity, teams that adjust. And then they said something that every Cowboys fan needs to hear. This team has none of that right now. No leadership, no consistent voice, no fight when adversity hits. It was almost painful to watch, not just because Dallas lost, but because Arizona looked like the team that cared more. Even Van Pelt noted how Arizona played from in front throughout, controlling the game's tempo. The Cowboys' vaunted defense, once the pride of the NFC, gave up big plays, blew coverages, and once again showed no sense of urgency. And that's what hurts the most, isn't it? Because this team still has talent. CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Dak Prescott, they can move the ball. But as we've seen over and over, talent without identity doesn't win in the NFL. Aikman said it best, "You are what your record says you are." And right now, the Dallas Cowboys are a team with no direction, no leadership, and no consistency. Even the panel joked about Jerry Jones's upcoming trade announcement. The truth is, there's no single move that will fix the Cowboys until accountability becomes a real part of the culture again. So what does this mean moving forward? The Cowboys head into the bye week at a crossroads. The schedule only gets harder. Raiders, Eagles, Chiefs, three teams that will expose every weakness if Dallas doesn't figure things out fast. And Aikman's message to fans was clear. Stop waiting for one move or one player to save this season. The team has to save itself. This isn't about salary cap space or draft picks or trades. It's about heart, effort, coaching, execution. The Cowboys haven't just lost games this year, they've lost their edge, their swagger, their belief that they can line up and dominate anybody, anywhere. And yet, as critical as this broadcast was, there was an unspoken truth behind every harsh word. Dallas still has the pieces to turn it around. The offense is explosive when it's focused. The defense, though battered, still has playmakers capable of taking over games. The question is, will they? Because as of Week 9, the patience of this fan base is wearing thin. You could feel it in the comments flooding social media after Aikman's segment. Fans aren't angry anymore. They're tired. Tired of the same story. Tired of the hype, the false dawns, the excuses. Tired of watching other franchises rebuild and rise while the Cowboys keep spinning their wheels. Troy Aikman didn't say anything we didn't already know. He just said it out loud, on national television, with the credibility and emotion of someone who once made the stars shine. This is not a good football team. That's the quote that will echo through this bye week. And maybe that's what this locker room needs to hear. Sometimes the truth hurts, but it also motivates. If there's any pride left inside the star, this is the moment to show it. This is the time for Brian Schottenheimer to take control, for Dak Prescott to lead not just with words but with action, and for the defense to rediscover its identity. Because the great franchises, the real contenders, respond when they're called out. They fight back. So now it's up to the Dallas Cowboys to prove Troy Aikman wrong. Cowboys Nation, I want to hear from you. Do you agree with Aikman? Are the Cowboys just average right now? Or do you believe this team still has the fight to turn it around after the bye? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you're part of the true Cowboys faithful, hit that like button, subscribe, and let's keep this conversation going. Because here on Cowboys Nation Report, we don't sugarcoat it. We hold this team accountable because we still believe they can rise again. The Dallas Cowboys are down bad, but the story isn't over. Now it's time to find out what kind of team this really is.